We greatly look forward to going to Northeast Pennsylvania tonight, and President Trump is going to give a positive, economic-focused speech where he talks about all that he and his team has done to provide bigger paychecks and lower prices for the American people.
All right, there's Caroline Levitt, but earlier today here on Fox and Friends, here is the agenda in action for the economy. A couple things here. Last week, you had the Trump accounts on behalf of Michael Dell and his wife. $1,000 to every newborn over the 4 years here. Task force on grocery prices, looking at possibility of collusion in the prices nationwide. You got the farmer aid that came out yesterday. So you got $12 billion, that money coming from tariffs that have been collected from countries around the world. And you had this announcement last week on the affordable car issue here, trying to roll back some of the fuel standards that were initiated during the Biden years. Let's talk about it now with the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, James Blair. Nice to see you again, sir, and good morning to you from the White House.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
You bet. It's a huge day. New York Post headline. Here's the editorial. Listen to the people, President Trump. They really do feel economic pain. Mr. Blair, what's the message? What's the strategy?
Well, the president understands how people feel. That's why he ran for office to begin with. The message is very simple. We are trying to fix what Biden and the Democrats currently in Congress broke. They raised inflation to its highest level ever in this country, right, which stole from the American people. Wages were down, prices were up, pressure on both sides. And the president is trying to make them whole. He's trying to give them back what was lost and give them more. He's done that through tax cuts, through the big, beautiful bill over the summer. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime pay, right? No tax on Social Security, the things that he ran on. Democrats fought us every step of the way. And two, he's fighting to bring prices down, and we've been successful in a lot of areas. And there's still more work to be done. But the point is, Biden and the Democrats broke it. Republicans and President Trump are trying to fix it, and the Democrats are stopping us every step of the way in any way that we can.
Okay, so Pennsylvania is the first stop around 6 o'clock Eastern today. You're going to the northeastern part of that state. It's a swing district in a swing state. Here's the Democratic governor on the message there. Watch.
The American people are seeing prices go up. They're feeling it. They know that money's being taken out of their bank accounts for more money's being taken out for the same amount of stuff maybe they got before. No matter how much bluster or rhetoric the president shows up in northeastern Pennsylvania with tomorrow night, it's not going to change where the American people are right now, and that is frustrated with rising costs and really concerned about their future.
Okay, I'll give you a crack at that, Mr. Blair. I think you were on to it a moment ago. Go ahead. To Governor Shapiro, you say what?
Where was Shapiro a year ago? What has happened is the president has halted inflation and price hikes have halted, and now they're going in the other direction. Where was he when the Democrats were in office when all of this started for the last 4 years? That's what we want to know. Where's he been? Welcome to the show. And I would ask him this: why doesn't he challenge his fellow Democrat governors around the country who are right now writing tax rules in a number of Democrat states to prevent the tax cuts that President Trump and the Republicans put in place over this summer? No tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime pay. Like I mentioned, there's a number of Democrat states right now, you can read it in USA Today, they ran a piece last week on it, are writing tax rules to capture all of those tax cuts and take them into the state's coffers. They're actually blocking the working class tax cuts that we put into place in Democrat states. Why doesn't he call out the Democrats for that? It's unconscionable what they're doing.
All right,
We're trying to put money back in their pockets.
Yeah, I apologize for interrupting you. How many stops here? PA's number one. How many will there be?
I think there will be countless stops. You know what time it is. We're a year out from the elections. The president's getting back on the road. You know that he travels more than anybody and gets out there amongst the people. He's going to be all over the country. Susie Wiles said it yesterday. We look forward to it. The people look forward to it. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I saw her comment on that, too, and wanted to ask you about that. Two more things quickly. Put it up on screen now. According to the Council of Economic Advisors, coming from the White House now, a Trump account of $1,000 could grow to more than $300,000 in only 18 years. Can I ask you, where'd that number come from? 300 grand.
So what I think I've seen is that if you did the maximum contributions every year, which I think there's about 5,000 a year, and then you just took the average growth rate of the stock market. So I think, you know, you're seeing some additional money there from continuing to contribute to the account, which parents can do and employers can do. But I also expect that a lot of states are going to get in on this. Vivek Ramaswamy in Ohio has gone out and said that he wants Ohio to add money to the accounts for the children born in Ohio. I think we'll see that trend continue across the country as well.
Okay, now I understand it. $5K a year, which is what the parents can contribute in addition to it. Got it. One more thing.
And employers.
Here. Yeah, got it. Understood. On tariffs, here's the Truth Social that went out late last night. The biggest threat in history of the United States national security would be a negative decision on tariffs by the U.S. Supreme Court. We would be financially defenseless. Now, Europe is going to tariffs against China as they already do against others. We would not be allowed to do what others already do. How much concern is there among the president and those at the White House, including yourself, that the Supreme Court could go against you on this decision on tariffs?
Well, I don't know how to calculate, what the percentage chance of the court going one way or another is. What I know is what the president said, which is there is a way to do it even if they rule against us, but that would be prohibiting his executive power to conduct national security policy as we see it, and it would just not be as effective. He said yesterday we have to be able to move quickly. So when China came out with export controls that we couldn't live with, his threat of tariffs is what was able to get them to the table and ultimately work out a deal that was good for both countries. He settled wars through tariffs. I mean, right now in Congress, there's a bill that has bipartisan support to put tariffs on Russia. That is the U.S. Congress saying, you know what, tariffs are an effective negotiating tool for foreign policy and geopolitics. So it would just be a mistake, and it would undercut the national security strategy of the president in the United States.
We await that decision. James Blair, thanks for coming on. We'll watch the speech tonight at 6 o'clock.
Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.